So I'll kind of show you, this one's a little bit more basic. So I'll show you how the layers worked. So, oh my gosh, that is creepy. You can see like the mouth in the preview there. Anyways, so what we have here, so I had my reference photo here. And so what I did is I drew, here, I'll move it underneath. So what I did is I drew the shapes first, and then I did the line work after. Depending on what you're doing, sometimes it makes sense to do that. I tend to work with like very thick lines, and so I find doing the line work first generally is pretty good. But because I was finger painting, I was kind of just playing around. So we'll look at the time lapse in a second as well to kind of see my process. But so I brought this photo in and I drew over top of it to kind of get the shape, and then I used it again as a reference for my line work. So let's go into the time lapse here. I love the time lapse feature. It'll be automatically on and you have to disable it, so don't worry about being like, oh my god, I never turned it on. It usually should be on no matter what. So let's look at the time-lapse replay. So you can see here I have the photo in at a lower opacity and I'm drawing on top of it on another layer. Make sure it's on another layer because there's so many times where I've started using a reference photo and then I end up drawing on top of it and I have to redo all my artwork because there's no way you're gonna like be able to select that out. So make sure it's on a separate layer. And then, so what I tried to do here is I tried to do, again, this is finger painting, so please don't judge me on my artwork. So here's now I'm doing the line work. So I've got the lower opacity as well on top of my coloring. And then I'm cleaning up my lines here a little bit. And then I go in and try to do some shading. And then it just wasn't working because I was using my finger. And it just came out really creepy. So I end up not using that and then just going for kind of a nice flat style. So it definitely depends on what style you're going for. I find using this like underlay of a photo feature, I tend to just want to go flat when I'm doing it. If I actually want something with depth, I tend to not trace. I just tend to build it from the bottom up and maybe use the reference photo just on the side. Just because I find it's a little bit, it just doesn't seem to reflect my style as well. So I thought, oh, I'll just go with a completely different style with this one, kind of flat, kind of different, just really basic. So this one ended up being, I think, only 3 layers. So it's the line work, the background, and then the coloring. And I ended up just kind of using really thick brushes and just kind of playing around. But it's definitely, I'm especially not great at drawing babies, so using this is a great way to practice drawing babies, and using a photo as a reference. Even if you don't trace over it, just having it off to the side too. I've done a couple other pieces too that we can look at just as an example. So this one, I did the same thing, but what a neat feature that you can do is if you insert a photo and call it a private photo when you insert, so it's when you go to the little wrench here, add, insert a photo, if you slide across, it gives you an insert private photo. And what's nice about that is when you do your time-lapse replay, your reference photo doesn't show up in your video. So this is a great way for me to build my skills and not feel like it's really, really ugly. Although I don't know what happened there with my daughter's face. It's a little creepy. But yeah, so that's kind of a fun way to use photos as like kind of an underlay. And I'd love to see what you come up with.